When you think of the date September 11th, you probably think of the 2001 attack on the Twin Towers in New York City. I do too. However, I also think of September 11th, 1973, when a Chilean military coup, overthrew President Salvador Allende. I've dedicated numerous hours to research on the intricacies of this event, of this monumental event in Chilean history, and I have found that this research has complemented the personal accounts that my mother, my grandfather, and my extended family have shared with me throughout my lifetime. Today, I will attempt to inform you specifically on the build-up to and the aftermath of the 1973 Chilean military coup. First off, we shall explore exactly what led to this dramatic event. But in order to do that, we need some historical context. In the 1970s, the United States was a player in the Cold War and opposed many communist regimes throughout the world. On the other hand, in Chile, Salvador Allende was the first socialist president ever elected democratically in a Latin American nation. One of his most important policies was the nationalization of the copper industry in Chile, which was previously run by large United States corporations. The United States' involvement in Chilean politics began as soon as Salvador Allende was announced as a presidential candidate in 1970, and he introduced the Unidad Popular socialist government. Numerous covert affair operations were implemented by the CIA to prevent and stop Allende's presidency. One of them was an operation named Track 1. It was a top secret plan backed by the State Department that urged Chilean Congress to deny Allende the right to assume power. However, this plan ultimately failed. A follow-up, named Track 2, was a scheme that consisted of kidnapping Commander-in-Chief of Chile, General René Schneider, a general who opposed a military coup. This ultimately failed as well. However, General Schneider was eventually assassinated. CIA officer Thomas Kermesinis confessed in a 1975 investigation that, quote, Track 2 never really ended, and that smaller covert operations, now known as a 5-part covert action program for Chile, continued. This plan included anti-socialist propaganda, increased relations with military generals in the Chilean army, as well as furthering coup plans. In the United States, Richard Nixon was a newly elected president. Therefore, he was very inclined to listen for suggestions from his advisors. Richard Nixon's administration, particularly the National Security Advisor Henry Kissinger, pushed for the United States to intervene and help with the overthrow of Allende's administration. 3 days after Allende's inauguration in 1970, Kissinger, in a National Security Convention or Council meeting, mentioned that the United States aimed to create conditions in which a collapse or overthrow might be feasible in Chile. Later on, Kissinger and President Nixon authorized El Mercurio newspaper, which was the largest national newspaper, Chilean newspaper at the time. They authorized the newspaper to receive $2 million in support to promote opposition for Allende. Thirdly, Kissinger stated that the United States' contact with Chilean military forces through the Covert Action Program for Chile was, for one, for intelligence, and two, for potential future action. The coup on the day of September 11th, 1973 began in the main port city of Valparaiso, where U.S. cruisers were stationed, and the Chilean Navy mutinied and then joined forces with the Army and Air Force en route to the capital, Santiago. In Santiago, soldiers and tanks crowded the streets, and Air Force jets bombed the presidential palace while President Allende was addressing his fellow Chileans in a shortwave radio broadcast. After Allende's death, General Augusto Pinochet assumed power, and a violent dictatorship ensued, while political assassinations continued and many Chileans were exiled. Some examples of the violent dictatorship and major systemic changes that took place under Pinochet's rule were that the Chilean constitution was destroyed and replaced by General Pinochet's own version. Congress was dissolved, which gave Pinochet full power. Unemployment rose 10% within 2 years. Books were burned by the army to eliminate any trace of socialist ideology. According to the report of the Chilean National Commission on Truth and Reconciliation, 28,000 people were victims of government torture. The country was run by military. In addition, political assassinations continued, both abroad and within Chile. Internationally, in 1976, Chilean Foreign Minister Orlando Letelier, who was a severe critic of Pinochet's rule and was living in exile in the United States, was assassinated in Washington, D.C. with a car bomb. Within Chile, 1,200 people were killed within 3 months of the new regime. Most of these people included supporters of the previous socialist government, as well as union workers and students. In addition, 2,000 university faculty were purged, while 20,000 students were expelled from their schools. According to the same report of the Chilean National Commission on Truth and Reconciliation, 3,200 people were executed or disappeared throughout the total 17-year dictatorship. This brutal dictatorship by Pinochet, caused Chileans to seek asylum and refuge abroad. By 1987, about 200,000 Chileans, or roughly 2% of the population at the time, were exiled or left the country on their own account. I can say that my mother's family were among those 200,000, and that they emigrated to the United States after considering a move to Australia. To reiterate, the 1973 Chilean military coup received a significant amount of support from the United States, and it led to massive political changes during the rule of Pinochet. To this day, Pinochet's dictatorship, since it ended in 1990, has had a long-lasting impact on Chilean politics and government, as well as on the Chileans that lived through it and experienced it firsthand. Just a few days ago, after 40 years of Pinochet's constitution providing the foundation for Chile's government, 78% of the Chilean population voted to rewrite it, symbolizing a major step toward the country's recuperation from Pinochet's brutal dictatorship. Thank you for your time.